For asking you along this morning is just to highlight the fact that we have executed 3 search warrants out in the northwestern suburbs of Melbourne from 3 o'clock this morning. At those locations at Dallas, Campbellfield and Greenvale form part of Operation Donabate, D-O-N-A-B-A-T-E. Operation Donabate is a joint counter-terrorism operation that's been running now for since March as a joint counter-terrorism operation that's been running in relation to 3 individuals who we had reason to believe would be planning to commit a terrorism event in Melbourne. That investigation had been going on since March. Over the last, particularly the last week, those intentions have escalated, and we've gathered evidence, considerable evidence of planning for a terrorism event. Reached the point now we have sufficient evidence to act in relation to preventing a terrorist attack, and therefore we have executed warrants today and taken 3 people into custody. 3 people we have currently in custody are a 30-year-old man from Dallas, a 26-year-old man from Campbellfield, and a 21-year-old man from Greenvale. They're currently being interviewed at the offices of the Joint Counter-Terrorism Command, and we have an intent later in today to present those people before court with a view to charging them with Section 101.6 of the Criminal Code, which is acts in preparation of a terrorism event. I have officers here from the Counter-Terrorism Command who can probably be more specific in detail on the actual operation, but certainly it's our view that whilst a specific location was not finalised, there was a view towards a crowded place, a place where maximum people would be attending to be able to kill, we allege, kill a maximum amount of people as possible. Believe over more recent days attempts have been made to source a .22 semi-automatic rifle to assist with the carrying out of that terrorism event. Fortunately, this is an event that we've been able to deal with in relation to our counter-terrorism operation, therefore being in a position to interdict prior to it being completed. So what I might do is initially ask the Premier to say a few words, and then I'll invite Assistant Commissioner McCartney to say a few words, and then we can take questions off the back of that. So, Premier.
Thank you, Chief Commissioner. Very briefly, can I simply say on behalf of all Victorians that we are very proud of the work that Victoria Police, Australian Federal Police, ASIO, have been able to undertake in relation to what could have been a potentially deadly incident, a very, very serious incident. This again, I think, confirms for all Victorians that we are very well served, both by Victoria Police Counter-Terrorism Command, some of our specialist Victoria Police members, particularly the Special Operations Group, and of course our strong and enduring partnerships with AFP and other intelligence agencies. On behalf of all Victorians, I want to thank each and every member involved, many hundreds of officers who have put themselves in harm's way to keep all of us safe. The seriousness of this potential incident should not be underestimated, and we congratulate and we are very grateful, all of us as Victorians, for the work that has been done. I'm more than pleased to hand over to our AFP representative.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks, Premier. Since September 2014, when the national threat level was raised, we've charged 90 people relating to 40 counter-terrorism investigations across Australia. I think today's result is another excellent result in terms of the work that we've done in that space. And really what it does, it highlights, as the Premier has stated, the really close working relationship between the AFP, ASIO and Victoria Police and the work that we do in this space. Importantly, as noted, the decisive actions that we've taken today have mitigated the risk from this terrorist cell. If we had not acted early in preventing this attack, we'll allege the consequences would have been chilling, with the potential, as the Commissioner stated, with a potential significant loss of human life. So as a result, in terms of the charges we will lay today, they will be serious charges, and those charges carry the penalty of life in prison. The Commonwealth is committed to working with Victoria Police in the work that we do in the counter-terrorism space, in terms of the resources that we provide, but also recently in terms of the legislation we've enacted to assist with our investigations in this space. Lastly, and I think really importantly, I'd like to thank the group of young, dedicated investigators, intelligence officers from the AFP, from Victoria Police, from ASIO, who work incredibly long hours, who work day in, day out, and are focused on one key issue, and that is keeping the people of Victoria safe. Thank you.
Okay, so just we'll be able to take some questions, but just by way of some further background on the three people we currently have in custody. I'm unable to really name them. They'll be presented at court today, where obviously they'll be named. But in relation to them, they are all Australian nationals holding Australian passports. All three passports were cancelled in 2018 by federal agencies. One was cancelled in January 2018, another was cancelled in March 2018, and another in October of 2018. All three people are of Australian nationals of Turkish background. Two of them have no criminal history at all. One has an offence from 2007 in relation to failing to display all plates. Other than that, there's no criminal history or background, certainly no bail or anything like that applying in this case. I might at this point take questions and we'll go from there.
Was the property in Poolaroo a place of religious observance?
They were home addresses of the three people we have in custody at this time.
Are you able to give us street addresses for when these
In this context, I can't at this stage, but certainly I think our media unit will be able to perhaps provide some background support to you there.
How close do you believe they were to being to carry out the
We believe we had enough evidence to act. We were sort of investigating it. We didn't have a precise time and a precise location, so we were operating there. In this investigation, as we were getting briefed a number of times over recent times, this group were using these encrypted communications to deal with each other, so that made to be able to be precise about when and where more difficult. So we did make a decision to act as soon as we had enough evidence.
Is that via sort of use of an application like WhatsApp or?
Yeah, well certainly I'll ask the assistant commissioners to perhaps deal with that if you like.
Just one more.
Yep.
Sorry. Is there any suggestion at the State Funeral Office historian understand if there would have been some kind of proposed location?
Yeah, look, we don't know that, and certainly what we have is that certainly inspired by ISIS, we know that, and recently over about the last week they've become much more energised, so there's certainly been a lot of publicity and talk about terrorism and certainly public place activity. We had the Burke Street trial on as well, so there was certainly a lot of public awareness around mass casualties, terrorism over recent times. So I don't know whether that's played a role or not, but certainly over the last week they've become much more energised about doing something more quickly.
Did they have any connections to people who've been previously arrested or tried for terrorist activity?
Again, I might ask Assistant Commissioner to deal with that. I'm not aware of any, but I'll ask the Assistant Commissioners. Perhaps if you want to deal with those two questions, fellas.
A second. Just on the issue of encrypted communications, it's not the case that we're going dark, we've gone dark. And this case is another example of that. They used a number of forms of encrypted communications that presented significant challenges for us in the investigative work that we did. And as the commissioners noted, it was part of the rationale in terms of our approach in relation to this case on when we went to mitigate the threat in relation to this issue. Ross, I might just pass to you in relation to the other issue.
In relation to connectivity with other groups, we're not aware of connectivity to other groups, but that of course is in part impacted by our ability to understand what's being transmitted through applications. So in the course of the investigation, because we're only at the early stage still at this point, I'm sure we'll be able to identify whether that was the case.
There was talk of the semi-automatic rifle, but do we know of any other weapons that these men possessed or were trying to possess?
Now, at this stage, what we will be alleging is that they were trying to acquire semi-automatic 22 calibre rifles.
So trying to acquire but hadn't yet acquired?
They were in the process of making that acquisition.
How were they making that acquisition?
That's part of the investigation. It's part of matters that will be put to them today, so I'm not prepared to comment at this point.
Did the men attend the Hume Islamic Youth Centre?
I think they may have attended a long time ago, but that would have been when they were quite young, and I'm not sure whether that's all of the group. More recently, not the case.
How did they come to the attention of authorities? What was the trigger?
They've been of interest to us based on some information we received early last year in 2017. We commenced an investigation on the basis of that information through my security intelligence unit. When that information caused us enough concern, we made a conscious decision to pass that investigation across to the Joint Counter-Terrorism team where the appropriate resources are put aside to do such a complex investigation.
Have they
Is this a
attempted?
case of, sorry, is this a case of, I guess, the community they were in, the Muslim community they were in, or the religious community they were in, giving that information to you or family members or friends?
I can't actually give you the genesis of that communication at this point in time. Obviously, that's going to become part of what we'll allege in the brief of evidence.
Are these men family? Are they related at all?
Two of the men are family, and one not so.
Have they attempted to travel overseas to Syria or other locations?
I'm not aware of an attempt to travel overseas, but that could be the case.
Passport cancellation.
That's a matter for the Commonwealth. I don't know whether you...
Yeah, obviously, as noted by the Commissioner, the passports was cancelled this year, and again, it's a risk assessment we do on a continuing basis, and at that time the decision was made. The concern was that they were going to travel offshore and may be involved in terrorist activity offshore, and that's why the passports were cancelled.
Where to offshore?
Into the conflict zone.
Did they have any relatives who'd previously tried to travel overseas, had their passports cancelled or been arrested for terrorism?
No.
So no connections whatsoever to other people?
Well, there are connections to other people, but again,
Not
I think...
family connections?
No, but I think that the important point to make, we're not suggesting this has been directed by ISIS. Again, this is an attack that's been inspired by ISIS, driven by the propaganda machine, and unfortunately still people are listening to that propaganda machine in terms of what they espouse in relation to those issues.
Do you allege that they may have been self-radicalised or that they may have been involved with groups that had sort of...
Do you want to jump into that?
Yeah, I think the view will be yes that they've radicalised within this cell as a group, and as Ian's pointed out, unfortunately the ISIS propaganda machine and that of Al Qaeda promotes this side of activity. So when people are prevented from travelling or it's difficult to get to the conflict zone, then often the view will be, well, I'll change tack and commit an act in the country in which I live, and we've seen that all over the world. Can I just say, just touching on what Ian said as well, that my compliments go to the complexity of this investigation and the pretty amazing work the joint team have done between ASIO, ourselves and the Australian Federal Police. It's been quite of a remarkable investigation over a very compact time.
Do we have any timeline on when they were actually planning on acting?
No, that's something that we're certainly looking at as part of the investigation.
But do you believe the threat was imminent?
We're of the view that it reached a risk threshold that was unacceptable. Our view is we'll never let things run, even if we had to gather evidence later on to compound what we already know. There is a point in time where we just won't tolerate any risk to the Victorian community.
How many rifles were they seeking? Was it just one or was it multiple?
So that'll be part of the matters presented to the court this afternoon, and until that investigation is completed through interviews, I can't actually comment on that.
Was there any indication that they had tried to make an improvised explosive device or were going to in the future?
I'm not aware of that occurring, but again, that could be part of the investigation that's revealed as we go forward.
So they would have been aware that they were under the microscope because their passports were cancelled, but they continued on, so they reverted to this?
Yes, so I think it'd be reasonable to say that they would exercise some operational security based on the fact that they would think that there would be some oversight on their conduct, yes.
How confident are you that the threat is now contained and there won't be, also are you expecting any further arrests?
Yeah, I'll just leveraging off what Ian said, the Chief Commissioner said, we're very confident that our actions taken very early this morning have neutralised any threat to the Victorian community from this group. And we don't believe there's any extended threat outside of the group that we currently have in custody.
You said you don't have any specific location. Are there any kind of range of locations you can give us? Was it in the city? Was it Fed Square? Was it St Kilda?
I know you certainly want to be able to zero that down. Look, we didn't have a specific location. We know that they had identified. What we do know from the evidence gathered that I've been briefed about was that they were certainly looking at a place of mass gathering, a place where there were going to be crowds, because they were trying to focus on, trying to have a place where they could kill as many people as possible. So that was a view around what is a crowded location where they can go to as a crowded place rather than in a specific location. For example, a couple of years ago when we had Fed Square and those sorts of things, there wasn't that granularity about that's the location at this point.
Was there something about the timing though? Were they aiming for Christmas crowds or New Year crowds?
We're getting to a busy time of the year, as you know, with a lot of mass gatherings occurring, and heading before we start to head into that Christmas time. There's a lot of places where mass gatherings occurring, Christmas parties and all that sort of thing. So we're heading into that season where we get a lot of those mass gatherings occurring. So that certainly, no doubt, would have played on the investigators' minds about locations as well. But we didn't have, as I say, we didn't have a set location where that was occurring. Certainly, as I said, you've got to weigh up what you know, but then also what you don't know, so which is what the investigators no doubt do, is about what they don't know about timings, etc. And you always have that unknown because of the black spots that you get in communications and things like that. So you operate with what you know and then the risk that's there from what you don't know.
How many terror plots have you foiled in the state now?
That's a good question. Ross, that's your bread and butter. I don't know. Do you know how many we've foiled?
Well, a lot, yeah. National, I think it's about 15 disruptions in the last since 2014. I think this would be something like the fifth or sixth, depending on what level you're talking about. But in terms of complexity, we've had at least 4 major disruptions, but there's been others as well.
Is there a particular problem in Victoria as compared to the rest of the country? How are we doing?
Really, in relation to counter-terrorism, if you look at New South Wales and Victoria, there is we sort of appear far more prominently, and then there's a fairly large gap then to other states and territories in relation to terror events. But certainly, it was probably commensurate with us in New South Wales, and so New South Wales probably have had a few more than us, Ian, and then it's us, and then there's a big gap to other states.
After events like Burke Street, are you kind of switched on more to, I guess, pay more attention, put more resources into listening to that chatter that comes after it?
Well, we always do that anyway, so that forms part of our operation. So even after that event a couple of weeks ago, that's what we do as part of that operational response.
But if after these things you expect an uptick and more people talking about it, I mean, obviously you said that these guys started talking more after that. Is there a capacity to pull more resources in after an event like that? Yeah,
and we do. We do that. In fact, this morning's operation had more than 200 police involved in this morning's operation, so we ramp up as we need to, yeah.
Which 2 men are family? Is it the man from Dallas and someone else, or which 2 are family?
Does that help you?
Yeah, so I'll have to book the glasses.
So the Campbellfield and Broadmeadows are the 2 that are family.
And are they the ones who had their passports cancelled?
All 3 have had their passport cancelled, yeah.
So they're brothers?
Yes.
Yes, I'm told.
They're brothers, yep.
Yes, they're telling me they're brothers.
Were other people in the homes when they were raised?
Families were at the homes, yeah.
So are we talking about wives, children?
Yes, yeah.
And has anything else been seized from the home?
Well, those search warrants are underway now, so they'll be looking as per usual to try and seize any evidence that's there, including electronic devices, as is the norm with these things, to try and get behind some of that sort of encrypted evidence Ian was talking about before. So that's underway at the moment.
How long have they been under investigation?
With the Counter-Terrorism Command since March, and they've been of interest to the intelligence agencies prior to that. And in fact, it was a referral from the intelligence agencies, I'm pretty sure, in this matter, which was a referral to the JCTT to start that investigation in March.
How long were they of interest?
I'm not sure nationally. For
early 2017.
Early 2017.
Can you tell us what it's like to work in counter-terrorism when you're looking at people for that amount of time and trying to work out when the right moment is?
Well, you've worked there more recently than me, Ross.
Look, I think
Stand in the middle, mate.
the concern for us is always making sure that we're covering off on all of the information. So, as you can imagine, this is one group, but these are not the only individuals that we look at in this state or nationally. So, there are great complexities. So, I think the fact that we work in such a joined-up way actually really helps that. But it is very much 24 hours a day. This job has been 24 hours a day for some time now. And obviously in the lead up to our festive season, we're very conscious of actually making sure we've got all the resources invested in this process.
And do you believe that the recent events of the past week, of the trial and of the Burke Street attack, has played a part in any way?
Yeah, I think the Chief Commissioner's already touched on that. You know, just the amount of talk and around crowded places and both of the Burke Street matters sadly have brought attention to this issue. So, you know, I think we remain of the view that that's really energised this group more recently. Absolutely.
Was there any information that they were going to use a car in the attack to ram people?
I have no information that was the case.
You mentioned that there's been a number of major plots foiled. Do you consider this a major plot that has been foiled?
Absolutely. So if we look at the history of those, we've had a number before the courts already this year. So Operation Castleholme more recently, where those trials have been completed. This is certainly amongst those in terms of the potential, you know, injury or loss of life to community members.
All right. Thanks everyone for coming along. We'll be able to provide more information after we've got search warrants, etc. done, and we'll liaise with the media unit on locations, etc. for you as well. Thanks very much for coming down this morning.